Hi, I'm Maura O'Donnell,
Hi.
and welcome to Interviews at the Undertown and to the 13th Annual Port Townsend Film Festival. We have Don Sellers and Lucy Hostrander, and we're talking about the film The Revolutionary. Instead of my going through your credentials, how about telling us a little bit about yourselves, Don, if we'll start with you.
Well, I've worked in the film industry for more years than I care to remember. Lucy and I met, we were husband and wife filmmaking team, and we met at Stanford University in a small documentary film program that they have there. After that, I went got a lot of jobs in the film industry working as a freelancer, but my big break was actually working for the third producer of this film. His name was Irv Drasnin, and I shot and edited a bunch of Frontline documentaries with Irv. He was the producer-director of those. And so that's pretty much my background.
And Lucy?
And see, I studied film as an undergraduate at the University of California at Santa Cruz. And so I made my first film, and then I started working in public television for a few years. Then I went to the film program at Stanford, and which was a master's program, and my master's thesis film, which was this film on Anna Louise Strong called Witness to Revolution, the story of Anna Louise Strong, which won the Student Academy Award and had a national PBS broadcast. And that was sort of my big break into, or launched me, I think, from being a student to a professional. And it was while I was making that film that I first met Sidney Rittenberg, who was the subject of this film, The Revolutionary. And so that was back in 1983 that I first met him. And then I made the film. You know, when I interviewed him at the time, it was not about his life. It was really about the subject, Anna Louise Strong, was somebody he knew. And all my questions to him were about her. So I made the film, and then I lost contact for over 20 years. And then one day, in 2004, Don opened up the New York Times, and there on the front page of the business section was a major article about Sidney. And we found out he was living not far from us. And so I found an email for him, and I wrote to him, and I said, Sid, how are you? It's been over 20 years. And he said, you know, I never saw that film you made on Anna Louise Strong. I'd love to see it. So he invited me to his home. I showed him the film. He gave me a copy of his book, his biography, The Man Who Stayed Behind. And I was blown away. I thought, oh my goodness, somebody needs to make a film about his life. And so that's how this film really started. And then we brought in Irv Drasnin, who was a China specialist, and so the three of us worked together on this film for 6 years.
Wow, 6 years.
A lot of that was spent raising money.
It's got to be an open mic.
Extraordinary subject. I mean, it's a documentary, you know, it's a dream. How much footage do you actually shoot for something like that to get a feature-length film? Because it was a lot of information,
We have a lot more information that did not make it
yeah.
in the film. We did a number of interviews with Sid that you see in the film. The first interview we did was 2005 in standard definition, and we did not expect that interview would make it into the final film. That interview was just made for fundraising purposes. I cut together a fundraising clips out of that, and we went out looking for money. Then when we were able to put some money together, we did our major interview over a 4-day period in 2007. Summer of 2007, we had about 17 hours, or is it more than that? Yeah, it was about 17 hours of footage there. And then we decided that we needed subsequent interviews with him, and we probably got about another 5-6 hours of interviews. So when I used to make Frontlines, it was common to shoot a 50-to-1 ratio there. So this was not quite that much, I don't think. I haven't worked out the math. But, no, it's not. But it's still a lot. And we had it was also very dense material. As you can see in the film itself, it's really dense. And so going through all of it and, parsing it and trying to put it together was a major undertaking. And it was done, quite frankly, by myself and Irv Drasnin, with Lucy's help. But Irv and I had, I don't know how many decades of experience cutting documentary films. I mean,
Right.
we weren't new to it. And still, it was a real difficult row to hoe.
Well, you weren't only telling his story. You were telling the story of the whole revolution.
That's right.
So I mean, how did that come about? Because there was a lot of footage that was telling the story outside of just talking head. So what was that like, assembling all that?
Well, we
footage?
didn't use any stock footage in this.
Oh, okay.
We just used it's a very unusual film. It's an unusual film because, first of all, it has its basis, its sort of foundation in CBS News journalism from about 40 years ago, 30 years ago. And so it's told in a very straight documentary journalistic style. But also because of the fact that there is not much stock footage from this era, and what stock footage exists, or some of what stock footage exists, has been suppressed by the Chinese government. The stock footage that you see from this era is seen over and over again. And Irv didn't want to do that. And so we decided instead we were going to use revolutionary art posters as the visual motif.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's
Beautiful.
and
Yeah.
that's what we did, is instead of using stock footage, we went back to these beautiful posters that existed or were created all through, even they're pre-revolutionary posters, but all through the revolution, and a lot in the Cultural Revolution. And so that was the visual motif of the film.
Yeah, it was interesting using the artwork because at times when it would show the crowd scenes, you almost felt like where you landed that you were seeing the subject of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought was that intentional?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, spot on, because it just was brilliant in that regard. Now, his ability to be so honest, do you think in part, I'm sure, I met him, he seems to be, an honest person, one wants to tell the real story. But did your relationship have something to do with that, to make him feel comfortable enough?
Yes, I think that he trusted me, and I think he trusted Irv Drasnin. When we approached Sid about saying, we want to make this film, Sid called his good friend Mike Wallace at CBS News and said, this guy Irv Drasnin wants to interview me for this film. And Mike Wallace said, you couldn't find anyone better. So I think that really sealed the deal, that Sid had gone with Mike Wallace, had been on several 60 Minutes pieces and had gone to China with Mike Wallace, and Mike Wallace knew Irv, and so he was a good guy. So.
I'm sure you've done this a lot, but just for us, recap the film, exactly what is the subject?
Well, this is the story of Sidney Rittenberg, who was the only American citizen who joined the Chinese Communist Party. And he spent a total of, over 2 separate periods of time, a total of 16 years in solitary confinement in China. The first time he was accused, the first period was 1949 to 1955. He was accused of being an imperialist spy. And this was on orders from Stalin. And it actually ties in with the woman that I made this film about, Anna Louise Strong, because Anna Louise Strong and Sidney were together in Yan'an in 1946. Then Anna Louise Strong went off to the Soviet Union, and Stalin accused Sidney of being her counterpart, and she was deported from the Soviet Union. But the Chinese put Sid in prison. And the second period of time was between 1968 and 1977. And that was because he ended up on the wrong political faction from Mao's wife, Jiang Jing, who was part of the Gang of Four during the Cultural Revolution.
Right. And as part of his life there in China, he rose during the Cultural Revolution to a position of power within the Chinese government that no foreigner has ever achieved. And so he was a very powerful figure for a brief period of time during the Cultural Revolution. But more than just the story of Sidney Rittenberg, as you mentioned, this story is the story of his life in China, is a framework of telling the story of the Chinese Revolution and of Mao's the continuing revolution that Mao had after the Chinese Communist Party gained power in China. And so it's a history story, and it's a history which very few people know.
Right. Well, I was just so fascinated with the evolution of the revolution. You know, how it started as one thing, and then your subject lived through every evolution of it.
The movements.
Yeah, the movements of it, and then how he was on top. Mm-hmm. And I should let you talk about that. The way he went through the ups and downs of this, and kept strong though. He wouldn't give up.
Yeah. I mean, even the first time he was put in prison, after a year, they said, we know who you are now, and if you want to, leave and you want to go back to the States, fine. But never come back to China. Right. Or you can stay here and, we'll see what happens with your case. And Sid said, I'm going to stay here. He didn't realize it was going to be another 5 years of solitary. But...
Wow. And just, he kept saying, I knew I was a part of history. And being a part of history, I couldn't leave that.
Yeah.
And so he kind of became a prisoner to that ideology.
That's right, but he is unusual in that there's lots of foreigners who went to Russia and went to China and became part of the revolution, but there's very few who actually came back from it and were able to reassess what had happened and what really was going on, and to sort of start over again, and to give up some of the things that they had gone there for in the first place. Now, Sid has never given up his belief in humanity and his belief in social progress. Right. But he has given up his belief in communism as a way of achieving those ends.
Well, it's an amazing film. Where is it going to show after this festival?
Well, we're taking it on the road next week. We're heading to Chicago.
Great. Chicago.
UNC Chapel Hill. Mm-hmm. Show it in Boston. It's going to be shown in New York. And then we're going to the Bend Film Festival. And then it's going to be shown in the Hot Springs Documentary Film Festival in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and Heartland Film Festival in Indianapolis.
Oh, great. And, how have you been faring here at this festival?
We love the Port Townsend Film Festival.
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
We've been here many times before with other films, and it's just...
You have a favorite thing about coming here? Is there something that...
It's just how it's so close, the town just comes out for it. It's like a big, the town has a celebration, and the filmmakers who come are just part of that celebration. It feels very congenial in that way.
And I love the fact that you have people of all ages. You have students here who are part of it, who were part of the opening ceremonies yesterday. People of all ages that want to be here and help out, and it's a great community.
It's a great film festival. Yeah. It's an undiscovered gem.
Yes.
Oh, great. The DVD, where can we find
the DVD is for sale. Right now, it's
only going to be for another day.
But right now, we're just selling it from our website to academic institutions and public libraries.
And the website is?
Revolutionarymovie.com.
Yes.
All right, there it is. Thanks so much for spending time with us, and enjoy the rest of the fest.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very
much.
much.
Thanks.